Hey, welcome to your Virgo horoscopes for the week of November 26th through December 2nd, which means we are officially entering the last month of the year, which I'm kind of excited about, actually. In all honesty, I do kind of have, I wouldn't say high hopes for 2024, but I do have hopes for 2024 that there's just been a lot of problems. A lot of things are off. Things are just not working, things aren't just aren't working, and I feel like a lot of that has to do with 2 straight years of earth sign Mercury retrogrades. You guys have gotten those Mercury retrogrades 2 years in a row. That doesn't happen very often. I can't remember it ever happening in the 10 years that I've been doing astrology, honestly. I mean, I'm sure it does happen from time to time. It did, but we're over that next year. And that's where I kind of have a little bit of hope. Earth signs are the ones that get things done. They fix the problems. And with Mercury coming in, being retrograde, every single time it's in an earth sign, kind of gums up that process. So that's the good news. And the retrogrades will be in fire signs for the most part. So, maybe a little tiny bit in the earth signs, but we're talking days instead of the whole thing. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I'm hoping that we get to a place where things start to improve. And I mean, if it gets any worse, I'm afraid of what's going to happen in the world, to be honest. People are just having such a hard time. This week, though, for you guys, not so much. There's no planets in Virgo this week. We are going to have some moon action next week. That's next week. We won't worry about that this week. We continue to have Juno focusing on relationships. We also have the Lilith or dark moon, which is also continuing to focus on those relationships. So they're very light influences, not very heavy influences. And because Juno is known as the great consort, we're really focusing on our love relationships this week for sure. While in some cases, changing or looking at other relationships that may need some changes that we're not aware of, if that makes sense. Most people don't realize that relationships can change and that you can change them if that is what is needed. It does take two people, but anybody can initiate the change. And I think that a lot of times when there are problems within relationships, that is the problem. It does take one person to make changes in their behavior, their mode of communication, in order to show the other one that they can do the same. And it usually happens that way. At least in my relationship, I've noticed that as I change different communication patterns, my husband starts to change his. We're not even planning it. It's just sort of happening. It's like he takes his lead from me and vice versa. Because it does actually happen in both ways, in many ways. So I feel that this week, it's not so much that there are challenges within those relationships, but because of the Lilith's influence, the challenges that were there might be a little bit more prominent than they have been before. In order for you to be able to see that maybe there's some work that could be done, if that makes sense. And we're not just looking at what they're doing in the relationship that bothers us. We're really looking at what we're doing, how we're dealing with the relationship, and how making changes ourselves can improve on the relationship as a whole, if that makes sense. Now, you guys are Virgos. I know a lot of Virgos. I know that most Virgos that I know would be the ones to stand up and go, me have a problem? I'm perfect. I don't know what you're talking about. That right there is the problem. Nobody's perfect. Look, I'm an Aquarius. If anybody's perfect, it's me. But guess what? I'm not perfect either. I'm just a human being like everybody else. The fact that we think we don't have a problem is a problem, period. Because that sort of mentality basically puts you in a situation where you just think that, pardon my French, but your shit don't stink, and everybody else has to accommodate you. And that is a big problem. Nobody, regardless of their sign, should be walking around like that, thinking that they're going to have successful relationships with anybody. People get tired of that mentality after a while. To me, I look at it as, if I want to continue with these relationships, I have to change the way that I approach the relationship. Because over a long period of time, my husband and I have been together almost 30 years. Over a long period of time, we keep doing things the same way we've always done. Nothing is getting done. Nothing is getting improved. Nothing is changing. And that you can't progress if nothing changes. It would be nice sometimes when we're young, we'd look back and on a relationship, go, I wish it would just stay exactly this way forever. But it can't, because we develop into different people. I develop into a different person. He develops into a different person. And if we're doing the same thing, it's not conducive to things working like it did, say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or 20 years ago. Evolution happens on an individual level, and therefore also has to happen to the relationship as well. And if it doesn't, many times we wind up finding ourselves in situations to where one person wants to initiate the change, but the other one's too scared and doesn't want to. And you might find yourself in a situation where your partner is holding you back, or you're holding your partner back. So it's very important, at least once or twice a year, to really take a look at you and make sure that what you're putting into the relationship is the best for everybody, that you're not taking more than you're giving. It's not a give and take, it's a give and give. Two people continuously putting into the relationship. The taking part is irrelevant, because it's happening no matter what. But it is give and give. Both people, it has to be balanced, or it becomes a problematic relationship. And so this is just a good time for that, to make sure that is taking place. And if it isn't taking place, you guys are Virgos and have no problem stepping up to the plate and saying, hey, this is a problem for me. I'm putting all this into the relationship. I'm not seeing what I'm getting out of the relationship. And maybe it's because they're putting something different into the relationship. That's still good for you to know, right? Communication is always important. Not that long ago, I have a Virgo child. He's very vocal, by the way, but if any of you really know me, you would know that that's why he's very vocal. He is my kid through and through, personality wise. And we were having some issues, and my husband kept saying, the kids have to step up, the kids have to step up, the kids have to do this, the kids have to do that, the kids have to do that. And then my son stood up and said, excuse me, but let me just give you a detailed account of what I am putting into this. Don't be looking at me to do anything else. And my husband didn't know. He really did not know that. And so once he did know that, it became different. The conversation changed, and it no longer came up in the same way anymore. So sometimes that's just all it is that they don't know. They need to be reminded. And then you just kind of let it go. And it sort of moves on into a different direction. So that's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do consider sending a tip or donation through my Ko-fi link, which is in the description. I really appreciate that. You guys, I really appreciate these donations. This is what keeps me continuing to be able to provide these for you, even though I do want to keep it as a free service. But I really appreciate all of this assistance. Nonetheless, you guys are awesome. I have the best clients and fans. It's true. I'm Melissa Bruce, the heavy metal psychic, the lady with the best clients and fans. I appreciate you guys very much. I will see you guys next week. In the meantime, you guys, you know how badass you are. You just make it a great week like you always do. Own it like you always do. And I'll see you guys next week.